For today's journey, we head on over to Presque Isle in Erie, Pennsylvania. Presque Isle is a state park nestled on the eastern side of the city of Erie. It is pretty much you're driving through the city, and then you're going down peninsula, and then boom, you're on an island with beaches and sand dunes and hiking trails and all sorts of other fun things. Now, being from Erie County and graduating high school in Erie County, this is a park I have been to several times, and I have some rich and fun stories back in this place. But nevertheless, let's go ahead and see what the park has to offer. I came out to Presque Isle State Park here in Erie. I'm actually right there on the Erie Lake shoreline, and only place I thought of where I could actually stop, park the car for a little while, and get a run in. So get some exercise going and get the old blood flowing. But Presque Isle is a fascinating little park. So after I go ahead and get my running done, we'll go ahead and drive to the end of the loop and back and see what tons of fun things we can see. So Presque Isle is a nice little place. It is a park, a state park in the middle of Erie, well, maybe on the side of Erie. And if you come to Waldameer Park, it is right down the street from that. I like this place. This has been a place we've come to a lot as I was a kid. There's beaches you can swim on as long as the E. coli count's not too high. I'm not sure if that's a problem anymore, but it used to be. But I have a fun story. Some of you guys know my crazy past. I was actually a fairly dysfunctional family, and because of that, I never really put any thought to my academic life. And Daniel Goleman wrote in his book, Emotional Intelligence, you should read that book, and he wrote in there that a lot of times these academic problems with these kids isn't that they're stupid, it's that their life is falling apart. They don't care what 2 + 2 equals. And that's the reality, and that's kind of how my life was. So I had this teacher in 7th grade, and she passed me in her science class with a D-. I got F, F, D, D, and she passed me with a D-. She said, I don't think you're going to learn anything if you come back to my class. Well, I had her again in 9th grade, and I started out strong with a B, then got a C, then got a D, then I went back up to a C. And she's like, good, I'm done with you. And then I take her again in 12th grade. And this was environmental biology 2. We did a lot of water sampling and things like that. And so she's like, oh Lord, this guy's back. How wonderful. Well, the reality is, by that time, it was around my 10th grade year or so, I decided that I was going to make something of my life and not just be an idiot my whole life. And so I started applying myself. I got books and I started studying. It got so much that school was so easy for me that what I started to do is I simply studied fun topics just for sheer enjoyment. And so when I came back again, I curved her class, and we took a field trip out here, and the seniors were chaperoning the 9th graders. So I'm out here as part of her 12th grade class, helping her 9th grade class. And she's looking over this part of the bay over here, and this is not where we were. We were more in the woods at the very end. But you look over, she's looking over the edge of the bay and says, what do you see those trees over there? They're pioneering species. And 9th graders, it's cottonwood. Like, that's right, that's cottonwood. I said, no, actually, those are not cottonwood, that's willow. I said, but that's okay, it's also a pioneering species. And she looks at it again. This is one of the best teachers ever had, because if a student corrected her, she would admit it in front of her class. That is what makes a good teacher, which contrasts another teacher I talked about at one point in time on this channel, a teacher that I had literally confronted with actual facts, and she's like, no, I'm not going to admit that my student is right. I'm the teacher, I'm always right. So that teacher was totally awesome. And all that happened right here. And so it's, Presque Isle also has a fascinating history behind it, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on, but let me show you some scenes first. This original walkway here was destroyed by a tornado in 2010. So this one was redesigned by an art department to kind of give it a little bit more of a, just a little bit more of a little look. Sorry for that loud car. I don't know why people bring loud cars out here, but most of them are pretty quiet. But this, an amazing observation deck. And there's some excellent fishing back here. Actually, as I was coming up to here, there's a fisherman that walked down that little path over there out to the pier. So this is several acres of wetland over here, which is really nice, amazing scenery here. This plant here is called boneset. It's distinctive by the leaves which wrap all around the stem. It's called boneset because they used to believe that if you would take this as an infusion, it would help your bones heal, which some people say that that is the case. Ooh, we have a bird over here. This one might be one of the... Ooh, missed them. There's some birds out here that are nesting. They get pretty aggressive in the nesting season, so we have to be careful. So this trail that we're walking on here, this is the brainchild of Representative Boyles. Passed away, I want to say 2003 maybe. But it was his dream and vision to come out to Presque Isle and be able to safely ride their bikes or walk or run. Because back then, it had all the roads, but it didn't have any side trails. And so he raised millions of dollars of funds and built this multi-purpose trail, which is completely handicap accessible, goes all around the park, and you can bike, you can, I've seen, just today, I've seen bikers, I've seen rollerbladers, I've seen somebody pushing a wheelchair out here, walkers, runners, and you can tell from the sound, there is a lot of traffic out here. So it's not the place, motorcycle, it's not the place where you go if you want to be like, never see anybody. It is fairly busy. It is a state park in the borders of a city, but it is still fascinating. But this part of the trail, I think, was finished in 1983. That goes up. The other part on my previous story, was not even established until after I finished high school, late 90s, and then there's another portion of the trail that was just finished and finalized that was opened. Well, in the 2000s sometime, I forget exactly when, but he did a great job raising all of the funds and getting out and basically putting together this amazing trail, just making Presque Isle an amazing place. Now we're going to drive a little bit further into the heart of Presque Isle. The very forefront, it's walkways along the bay, and there's some beaches on the other side. We'll go ahead and have a look at the beaches at the end of the video, including the lighthouse, which you can take a tour of as well if you are so inclined. But when you drive on out to the back, you drive through portions of wetland and a few other parking places where you can stop and picnic for the day. There's some boat tours back there, and most significant that we're going to go and visit now is Perry Monument, which is a beacon you can see from the city across the bay at night after the park is closed. But I'm not sure if it still is, but it was at one point in time at least lit up pretty bright. I think it is now again with solar power. But the Perry Monument is actually a representative to Admiral Perry, who is actually the reason Erie is a city and probably the reason United States is a country. We're going to go ahead and have a look at that and talk a little bit about what went on back that way. For you history buffs out there, this spot where I'm at now is a significant part in the War of 1812. While the primary battle and the victory was actually won over at Put-in Bay in Ohio, this is actually the area which was the staging ground for a lot of those battles. The protected port here made a good place to run the shipbuilding, and so they ended up building nearly every ship that was used in the War of 1812, which was the very first time a foreign battle had conquered and captured a British vessel on these waters here. So the monument here behind me is a monument to, where's that? There it is. And it's really tall. It's a couple hundred feet tall. I think it's 100 foot tall or something. But that is actually out to Olivet, Perry, who was the commander of the battle, who actually won the victory out here. Now, with all the sandbars, they were building the ships here and they couldn't get them out of the bay, and so they had to run these things called camels to get them over the 6-foot sandbar. But at one point in time, the British were coming, so the people had to push really hard, and all the crew had to come up and manually push everything over to get the ships in there. And that's one of the times the British retreated, thinking that the whole fleet was ready. In reality, most of them were still trapped inside the bay. But it was really fascinating. Now I wanted to show this bay here because this is called Misery Bay, and many of those ships fought in there were actually sunk, and I didn't realize it until I was reading all the plaques out here. It's a fairly standard thing. After the battle, they sunk the ships to the bottom of Misery Bay over here, which is a well-protected bay, so that they can literally raise them back up later. And several of the ships won in that battle were sunk and then raised, and one of them, the Lawrence, was sunk and raised like 3 or 4 different times over here in the Bay of Misery. And then there's a bridge behind me. Back beyond that, it is believed where Perry buried most of his dead from his crew. So back there is possibly a watery grave for hundreds of bodies. It's estimated, it's assumed, but I'm not sure if anybody's gone out there to actually dig for bones or anything like that. But this is a very significant spot, and this was the battle that really solidified that America is a growing strong. And it all happened at the village of Erie over here. Only had like 400 people and 100 homes at the time. And at one point in time, the British even captured it, but they were able to get it back. The British abandoned it. The Americans came back in, resumed the shipbuilding, and built here at this spot the fleet, which eventually conquered the British for the first time. So this is one of the most significant spots. This one and Put-in Bay, Ohio, are 2 of the most significant spots in the Battle of 1812. So for you guys that like history and want to see a bunch of historical plaques and visit some good spots, this is a really nice place. There's a lot of these picnic tables out here, and a lot of geese. I don't know how you feel about geese, but look at them all over there. They're all crazy. But this is one of the beauties of Presque Isle, and behind me on the other side over here, this is actually the shoreline into Erie, and there's a big barge over there. That's actually where hammer mill paper used to be. Right there, which contributed to this bay being highly polluted for a long time. You know, Lake Erie did catch on fire at one point in time, although that was kind of in a tributary river in Ohio, so whatever that's worth. But anyway, if you are in the Erie area, Presque Isle is absolutely worth taking the trip out to see. A lot of good exercise out here, a lot of good things, scenery, interpretive sites, nature trails. There is a wonderful couple-mile long nature trail. I don't have time to do that today, but hopefully we have enough content for you guys to get the gist of this park and see how amazing it actually is out here. Finally, being back at the end of Presque Isle, you can go a little bit further into the nature trail area, which I didn't have time to get to today, but it's wonderful swampland and things. Of course, Presque Isle is known for poison ivy and ticks, so be aware of that. Take all proper precautions. But along the northern side, you can hit all the different beaches, and there's 11 of them that go all the way back. Beach number 10 is significant if you like historical markers. That is called Bundy Beach, named for the very first person to ever swim across Lake Erie from Canada, and that was named after Pat Bundy, who swam across from Long Point, Ohio in 1975. The point that he reached in Erie was Presque Isle Beach number 10. So all the other beaches are just named by their numbers, 1 through 11, but Beach 10 is commonly also known as Bundy Beach for that reason. So you can have a look at that beach there. Looks like an ocean back there, but it's not. Just one of the Great Lakes. In fact, the second smallest. But they're huge, and they look like the ocean. In fact, when people first came across these, they were literally confused. They thought it was the ocean, but it was fresh water. And they're like, what in the world is this? You can see there's breakwaters all up and down the beach. This is beach number 3, and they go all the way up. I think 11 goes all the way up this way. I think there's only 2 or 3 of them that are open for swimming right now. You can come down and hang out on them, but you're not supposed to swim unless there's a lifeguard on duty, which, hey, there is on this one. He's over there somewhere. Even back in the good old days of high school, Presque Isle was known for 2 big things: poison ivy and ticks. I wouldn't want to walk through there. We'll end this video here. I hope you enjoyed Presque Isle, and definitely plan to stop by for a visit if you are in the Erie area. It's definitely a good place to take a walk or a run or a bike ride or a hike or a swim. Great little place. With that, thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. Hit that notification bell, and we will see you a little bit further down the road.